Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm checking out one of my favourite delay pedals from the last couple of years, the Boss Space Echo RE-202. Before we get too far into the video, if you are enjoying the content, then please do consider subscribing to the channel and liking the video. It really does help out. Cheers. The Boss RE-202 then is based on the Roland Space Echo 201 that originally came out in 1974. So as I mentioned, the Boss RE-202 then is based on that original Roland Space Echo 201 from back in the 1970s. That unit was a big old unit with an actual magnetic tape that ran through a record head and several playback heads. And then you would adjust the speed of that tape to get your different delay times. You could adjust which heads were active, which would give you different rhythmic delays. And the 202 is really kind of a faithful reproduction of that, but it also adds a few extra features as well. So let's talk about some of the features then. It's true stereo in and out. It has a saturation control, which allows you to adjust the amount of tape saturation in the delay sound. We've got a wow and flutter control as well, which kind of adds some aging effects to the tape. It gives you a kind of almost chorusy modulated sound in your repeats. We've got a tape age setting, which allows us to replicate either a brand new tape or a tape that's been used for a long time and is starting to wear down. So it does have reverb included, and the original Space Echo from the 70s had a spring tank in it. Now this has 5 different reverbs, with the only caveat being that to change the reverb type you have to actually power the unit off and then power it back up in a special mode and switch that reverb. One additional feature that they've added that neither the original Space Echo or the compact pedal version that they released at the same time as this one is an additional 4th playback head. So it just gives you a few more options for those rhythmic delays. Just, you know, gives you a little bit more versatility, a little bit more to play with really. Each of the foot switches has additional functionality. So your on-off switch has a kind of hold feature, which kind of keeps your repeats going for longer. The middle memory switch also turns your reverb on and off if you press and hold it. And then the tap tempo switch, when you hold that down, you get the twist sounds, which is when you send the unit into kind of that self-oscillating craziness. And it's, you know, it's cool as an effect, not super useful, but fun to play with. So on the front of the unit, there's 4 presets, including the manual mode. So you can have like 5 preset settings that you can then switch through with the foot switch, but it also supports up to 127 presets via MIDI. On top of all of that, it's fully MIDI controllable, which means you can change your presets via MIDI, or you can change all sorts of different parameters via MIDI. And finally, it does have a control in, so you can add an expression pedal or extra foot switches for different aspects of the functionality. So a couple of things I really like about this pedal. So, you know, firstly, it just looks really cool. It's clearly modeled after the original unit, and it just looks awesome, really. I really, really like the way it looks. I really like the chassis that they've chosen to use as well. It's very, very similar, if not identical, to the original Boss CE1 pedal, the chorus pedal from back in the 70s. So I hope they kind of reissue more pedals or make more pedals in this chassis. I just think it's really quite a cool look. There's one feature that isn't really shouted about with this pedal that I really like, and I'll demo that as well. But it does model the preamp of the Space Echo, the original Space Echo. And there's a couple of different modes that you can put it in. So you can have it bypassed completely, or you can have it in a mode where when a pedal is switched on, the preamp is engaged and is affecting your sound, but the saturation knob will only affect the sound of the actual delays, your repeats. My personal favorite mode is the preamp on all the time with the saturation taking effect on the sound whether the pedal is on or off. You can have it on all the time and it just acts like a bit of a preamp, just making your sound a little bit more interesting, giving it a bit more character. The other way I use this pedal is, it's really a utility thing really. I don't really mess around with MIDI too much, but I do use this to send a MIDI clock sync to my RC5 looper via the tap tempo. Just that way I don't have to sacrifice one of the foot switches I've got on my FS7 for dedicated tap tempo, and it just means that, if I want to do some looping, then my delay pedal is in sync with the rhythms that are included in the RC5. So my signal path for the demo today then is my Strat going into the RE-202, coming out of the RE-202 in stereo into the UAFX Dream 65 as my amp sim, and then out of that in stereo into my interface. So this is my Strat straight into the Dream with no reverb on or anything, and the RE-202 is completely off at the moment. So just a tiny bit of break up there, no reverb, just a nice platform to get the pedal on. Okay, so we'll start just with some delay, and we're going to be in the single head mode. Probably not going to demo every single mode, but we'll just give you a few examples of how it sounds on the different head settings. So here's head number 1. It's quite a short delay. So the repeat rate knob is going to control the speed of the tape. So when it's all the way over to the left, that's at the tape's slowest. And when you put it all the way over to the right, it's at the tape's fastest. So now if I increase it, it's going to get faster. And you can even hear that kind of speeding up sound. That's emulated. Same for slowing down. There you go. So I'm going to switch it to head 2 now, just because you'll be able to hear the delay a little bit better, because it's not quite as fast of a delay. So here we go. So there you go, you can hear those repeats quite clearly now. Let's see what it's like in its slowest setting. and then through to the highest setting, fastest setting. So the intensity is going to control how much this sound kind of feeds back into itself, and it can quite quickly get a little bit out of control with the self-oscillation, but let me show you that. There's that tape slowing down. And then of course your echo volume is just how loud the repeats are compared to your guitar signal. Okay, let's try a few other modes out. And one of the more entertaining delays are when you kind of start to combine heads. So here's head number 1 and 2 together. Let's try and slow it down a little bit. Start to get that kind of rhythmic delay coming through. So we've kept reverb off so far, but let's try it with a bit of reverb. I'm going to turn the repeats and volume and everything all the way down so that you can hear just the reverb. Quite a lot of reverb. Let's max it out. Then we'll combine a delay in with that as well. Can start to get really big. Okay, so let's just take it back to a bit of a simple 3-head. Reverb's off again now. And let me show you the saturation knob. So if I start bringing in saturation, you'll hear it applies tape saturation to the repeats. You can hear there when it's on full, it's really quite a distorted tone. If I take it all the way back again. So yeah, that's quite cool. And then we've got the wow and flutter, which adds that kind of modulation type sound, almost chorusy sound, sort of emulating the tape getting older. There, you can hear it now when it's on full. And then the other thing you can do as well is you can switch between a brand new tape or an aged tape. So here's what the brand new sounds like. Let's switch it to aged. So for me, that takes off a lot of the top end. Yeah, definitely. And then just next to the reverb control as well, you've got kind of a bit of a EQ for your repeats, so you can make them sound, you know, really bright. Or you can roll it all the way back, make it sound really bassy, really dark. Let's see what it would sound like. Let's go with the EQ kind of, you know, set to mid. Let's put saturation, a bit of aging on the repeats, just to see what it sounds like. I also talked about that emulated preamp, and I've put the pedal in the mode now where the preamp is always on, so I've got the saturation all the way off and the pedal is off as well. This is what the guitar sounds like into the Dream with the pedal off. That emulation of the preamp is still there, but you're not hearing the saturation yet. So let me bring in some saturation. So you can hear that tone's quite a bit dirtier already, and if I turn it up even more, it's going to get even more distorted. So you might want to mix that with, you know, bringing back the volume on the amp here a little bit so it's a bit cleaner. But it's just giving you a bit of a grit as you kind of like bass tone, you know. It's quite a cool always on effect. And you know, you can dial it back if you don't like it on full, and you know, this is just a mode that it can operate in that I think is pretty cool, to be honest. So if we turn that off altogether, you can hear now that my guitar's pretty clean. So just into the Dream, it's pretty clean. Dial in a bit of saturation again. And you know, you can always add in some reverb. So if I turn the pedal on but keep the delay all set to 0 as well, and then we've got the reverb engaged, then we've got saturation and reverb all from that pedal without even really using the delay in it. Perhaps a little bit much reverb, but... So yeah, just a cool little added feature that's not really shouted about. Of course, the other two features I haven't shown off yet are the warp and the twist features, so let's show you that now. Let's go with a fairly subtle delay and reverb setting. So now if I hold there, you can see it's grabbed onto those repeats and it's just playing them back. So here's a twist. So yeah, sends it into that kind of crazy self-oscillating mess. Not very usable, but a lot of fun to just muck around with, really. My final thoughts on the pedal then. Well, I really love this pedal. It's been on my board for about a year now, I think. I got it as soon as it came out pretty much, and I've loved it ever since. I've rebuilt my board several times over the last year, and every time it goes back on. I just love the variety of sounds you can get out of it. I really love that preamp sound and the way you can have that always on. But yeah, it's just great fun. It's really versatile, easy to use. You can't really go wrong with it, can you? Several different companies have had a go at making a Space Echo, with the most recent one being UA Effects, coming out with their Galaxy pedal. And while that pedal does look pretty awesome, and I've got a couple of UA Effects pedals myself, I can't help but wonder why anyone would choose that over the actual Boss Space Echo. But, each to their own. Well, thanks so much for watching and making it all the way to the end. If you are enjoying the videos, please do consider subscribing. And if you want to check out another video, consider watching this review of the Earthquaker Devices plumes that I put out recently. Right, well, that about wraps things up. So, yeah, cheers. Catch you in the next one.